One of the things that I'm learning most about being married is how important it is to actually serve those around you. And I feel like I had an understanding about that before I got married. I think that may have just came from, like, I was in a fraternity in college, and part of what we would do would be like service and community service. And I think in most churches, in most religious organizations, there's encouragement to serve your community, serve your God, whatever. Service is really important. A thought that I was having while I was serving my wife, I can't even remember what it was that I was doing, but realizing that there are a lot of guys who don't really want to serve people, but they want the benefit of what may be equated to that. So like, there are men who want wealth, who want women, who want notoriety and respect and all these things, but they don't really want to do the work to get it. So they ascribe to this idea of being an alpha male or red pill or whatever. And so they may do some work, fitness and stuff like that, working on their finances or whatever. But when it actually comes down to treating people well or benefiting other people, that part can sometimes be left out. If you really want to be a beneficial man, you have to serve other people. Even when you don't feel like serving people, you kind of got to show up. With that comes benefits, like not only in relationships, but I would say like in your career, in your place in society. Having a servant's heart and even being a servant leader has an impact on the way that you influence those around you. But for a lot of people who want to just be considered an alpha male or whatever and just dominant and running everything, very often I feel like they just want to reap all of the rewards without the work. And so like I wrote some notes, and really I don't think a lot of guys, they really don't want to be leaders. They don't really want to be actual alpha men, mainly because they have the wrong understanding of what it means and what it takes to be a real leader. Let's do some quick definitions, right? So alpha male from dictionary.com, a male animal having the highest rank in a dominant hierarchy, the most dominant, powerful, or assertive man in a particular group. Merriam-Webster, dominant male. The thing is, whenever people like to keep using this description of an alpha male, I think I don't really like it. I don't consider myself an alpha male. And I have no interest of being an alpha male because I'm not an animal. Like alpha males, very often that reference comes from the animal kingdom. And I'm not an animal, and neither are you. If you're watching this, more than likely you're a human being. That's just my opinion and my thought, that human beings and animals are not the same. And I know scientists and evolution and stuff like that can be a whole other discussion. But we like to, in that realm, if you want to call it manosphere or whatever, in this dialogue of masculinity and what men are, like to reference this, to say like, oh, this is just genetics. This is men are supposed to be like this, alpha males or whatever. But like, no. In my opinion, no, it's not like that. Like, we're not animals, and we're not moving in a community, in a society that requires a dominance hierarchy. I think the powers that be want to force us into that, and have been doing a pretty good job of forcing us into that kind of hierarchy and forcing us into that kind of culture and society at the detriment of all those involved. Here, I'm going to read something real quick from Wikipedia. So when you search alpha male, what came up for me was dominance hierarchy. It says alpha male redirects here. Okay. In biology, a dominance hierarchy, formally and colloquially called a pecking order, is a type of social hierarchy that arises when members of animal social groups interact, creating a ranking system. A dominant higher-ranking individual is sometimes called an alpha, and the submissive lower-ranking individual, a beta. Different types of interactions can result in dominance depending on the species, including ritualized displays of aggression or direct physical violence. In social living groups, members are likely to compete for access to limited resources and mating opportunities. Rather than fighting each time they meet, relative rank is established between individuals of the same sex, with higher-ranking individuals often gaining more access to resources and mates. Based on repetitive interactions, a social order is created that is subject to change each time a dominant animal is challenged by a subordinate one. So a couple of things, and this is turning into a rant, so it's just follow me. A couple of things when it talks about the access to limited resources and mating opportunities. Again, I believe that we're supposed to be coming from a place of abundance, thought and a mindset of abundance. And when you force scarcity, which again, I think the powers that be do that to everybody else, then yeah, you're trying to force people to act like animals. You're trying to force people into a pecking order. But that was never the case. That's not the case. Like, even with the way I believe how the Most High designed mankind, we're all supposed to be brothers and sisters. There may be somebody that leads, that may be in charge and have responsibility, but that doesn't mean they're the more dominant one, so to speak. You have more responsibility. You're supposed to take care of stuff. Like if you have brothers and sisters, you may have an older brother or older sister. She's the one that's responsible, or he's the one that's responsible when the parents are out. But that doesn't mean that they're any better than you. You're still siblings. You still care for one another. You should still love one another, But in this society, they like to get rid of that. Like, how can we set violence between people? How can we set favoritism between people? And there's a lot of rhetoric and talk out there that tries to get men to believe that this is how we have to thrive in society. We have to fight one another in various forms, whether it's physically or financially or whatever. Like, we have to do this so that, one, we can get all the money, and two, we can get all the ladies. And again, it's detrimental. It's detrimental. And it also makes what we perceive in society, in that what's in our community, as just riches, like objects to be conquered, to like hoard up, So like when you look at women, they're not people, they're not people. And I talked about this in the previous video about platonic relationships. You don't look at them as people, you see them as prizes. Same thing with cars, money, or anything else. The house that you have, whatever, all these things are just prizes to supposedly to help reinforce your pecking order, your position in this animal social hierarchy. But no, it's not about that. I am totally against that. I think as beneficial men, we should be creating a community and an atmosphere for all of us to thrive, so that there doesn't have to be any infighting. This idea of alphas and betas, no, you just get rid of all of that. We're all just beneficial. We're all benefiting one another. And if we are all doing that, we're all getting from one another. That abundance, there is no scarcity. Everybody gets what they need. Here's a definition of the word dominance in relation to its dominance hierarchy. Dominance is an individual's preferential access to resources over another based on coercive capacity, based on strength, threat, and intimidation, compared to prestige, persuasive capacity based on skills, abilities, and knowledge. A dominant animal is one whose sexual, feeding, aggressive, and other behavior patterns subsequently occur with relatively little influence from other group members. Subordinate animals are opposite. Their behavior is submissive and can be relatively easily influenced or inhibited by other group members. So yes, of course, when you define things like this way, most men don't want to be considered submissive or a subordinate or a beta, because you don't want the idea it's like I'm being influenced, or somebody's leading me. Well, the reality is we all are. At some level, we are all influenced. You're influenced by the suggested videos that appear to the right of this YouTube video. We're always being influenced. We're always being directed or encouraged to do this or to do that all the time. For you to think, well, nobody influences me, that makes me better. It's like, no, maybe you have a certain level of self-control. Sure, okay. But again, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all brothers. We're all the same. We all struggle and wrestle with a lot of the same stuff. And if we're trying to be beneficial for our community, for ourselves, and for each other, we need to respect that about each other. We need to respect that, hey, if somebody has a strength here, somebody's weak here, let's help one another. Not let's compete and then I'm going to dominate you and you have to be subject to me. No, that's how a lot of these guys on the internet are making so much money because they're forcing guys to believe that they are subordinate, that they are weaker, that they aren't good enough as they are. Wearing down probably somebody's already weakened and worn down self-esteem. It's not really benefiting anybody. They're taking advantage of you. Like one other thing I wanted to note, and then I'm going to hit the rest of my notes, is that in this system of being an alpha male, and I know there are people who are probably like, that's not really what alpha male means, whatever. This is probably the most consistent things that I've seen, But in this article, it talks about some of the costs of being an alpha in this segment, and I'll put it on the screen. But it says, talking about wild baboons, since again, this is the animal kingdom. And baboons are mammals. So let's see. In wild male baboons, the highest ranking male, also known as the alpha, experiences high levels of both testosterone and glucocorticoid, which indicates that high-ranking males undergo higher levels of stress, which reduces fitness. Reduced health and longevity occurs because these two hormones have immunosuppressant activity, which reduces survival and presents opportunities for parasitic infection and other health risks. This reduced fitness due to the alpha position results in individuals maintaining high rank for shorter periods of time and having an overall reduced health and longevity from the physical strain and costs of the position. I thought this was really good and important because with this idea of striving to be an alpha male, striving to always be dominant and always in control of everything, these expectations of what it means to be masculine, or seeing that this is the ideal of what you should be, is going to wear you out. It's going to destroy you. Like clearly even here in this example related to the animal kingdom, being the alpha in this sense is actually detrimental to you. Sure, you may have fanfare and quote unquote success for a period of time, but it's going to wear you out. It's going to destroy you. And if you don't learn, again, I believe, if you don't learn to become beneficial, if you don't learn to mature and actually realize that it's not about me being at the top, it's not about me being dominant. Humans are created to be interdependent. We need one another. We have to work together. That is how we thrive, not by being at the top of a mountain, beating our chests, saying that we are superior to everyone around us. And even, as I mentioned, if you have this mindset that it's a pecking order, this hierarchy of the best at the top and everybody else below is submissive, even in this description of this hierarchical ranking system, there's always somebody trying to take your spot, so that you're always in competition. You're always fighting for resources. You're always fighting for this, fighting for that. And you like always have to look over your shoulder. You can't rest. You can't be healthy. You can't really be whole because you're always striving to be the dominant one. That's not the goal. The goal, I believe, the goal that the Most High has for us, particularly as men, is for us to just be our best selves, to be our best and most beneficial selves, so that we can be beneficial and healthy for ourselves and have long life, and also to be a blessing for those around us, so that we can live for glory, for good, and for joy. But if we are listening to this idea, if we are listening to these concepts that push us to this limit, this animalistic limit, it's destroying us. It's eating away at our mental health. It's eating away at our emotional health, our emotional self-esteem. Because if you keep thinking or seeing yourself as a subordinate or a beta, you beat yourself up. Or if you see yourself as an alpha and you see everybody else as a beta or subordinate, now you're mistreating those who are supposed to be in your community that you're supposed to serve. That, again, as humans, we're supposed to be in an interdependent community. Now you're going to have animosity and negativity towards those who could actually help you and benefit you and bless you. So this whole concept, this whole construct is destructive. It's not beneficial. And again, I understand the reality is most guys just want to reap the benefits of being a so-called alpha, which is, again, sex, attention, notoriety, all the things that they sell us online. But the thing is, a lot of those guys don't really want to do the necessary work to be a healthy and beneficial leader. And the most important thing to that is service. It requires you being proactive. It requires you being vigilant. It requires you being kind. It requires you serving when you may not feel like serving. And sometimes maybe it's experiencing thanklessness. So say you are trying to help someone, whether it's friends, family, a significant other, your own children. You may not get a thank you for it. But if you're committing to being a beneficial leader and a beneficial man for your community, you do it anyway. You serve anyway. You show up anyway. You pay attention to all the little things so that your family's okay, so that your brother's okay, so that you're okay. It's not just about, all right, what do I have to do so that I can get at the top, so I can get all these things? No. What do I need to do so that I can be my best self, so I can live for glory and for good, so I can make sure others are okay, the people in my community are okay? It's a different mindset. It's a different perspective of how we should approach things. This post that I saw on the YouTube feed comes from Zara Hairston, and I'll put it on the screen here. And it says, all roles come with responsibilities, not just privileges. Careful of those who only want the privileges. And I thought that was so profound and so relevant to this. Because again, there are a lot of people who want the privileges of being a leader or being an alpha, but they don't want the responsibilities that come with it. You want a great and amazing wife that, this idea that you want a woman that's like low key, like a nymphomaniac, you know what I'm saying? And that will readily just do anything and everything for you. First, that's not real. Because again, I mean, not to say that I think there are women who may, or people in general, who may struggle with nymphomania, whatever. But this idea that they are like Stepford wives, just waiting out there for you, whether you're in the United States or you're being a passport bro and you're going some other places, it's not true. No matter how much money you have or whatever, like women are still humans. They're people. And if you want an actual happy, healthy relationship that is normal, you have to show up a particular way. And like I talked about in another podcast episode about referencing that article, The Rise of Lonely Men, emotional intelligence is one of those things. You need to be able to emotionally relate to your significant other. You need to be able to show up and serve in ways that makes her feel comfortable, makes her feel safe, makes her feel loved and appreciated. That's important. Again, in almost any relationship, even if you want a healthy platonic relationship with a brother, like, it's a give and take. There's respect. There's mutual understanding. There's actually listening, and supporting one another. All those things are important. You can't just say like, oh yeah, I'm this or I'm that, and you just only reap the privileges of it, but you don't actually show up and do the work. It doesn't work like that in real life. A lot of people want to tell you that and give you this idea that that's how it goes, but it's not true. Especially if you want like a realistic, healthy relationship. No, it requires you to show up. It requires you to be your best self and to love and to serve. It takes consistent work to actually show up and be beneficial for those around you, even for yourself. How you steward and manage your own self, your own kingdom, your own personal kingdom, can reflect on how you treat others under your care or influence. I think the book of Proverbs is great, and I would recommend any of you to read it as often as you can. There's a proverb, it's Proverbs 25, verse 28. In the Bible, it says, "He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls." I really like this, and I really like the book of Proverbs. But yeah, when I'm talking about having self-control and being able to manage your own kingdom, jokingly and somewhat not jokingly, even within our community, we like to call one another kings and queens. I think that's a cool thing to say to one another. But if you are trying to be a king, you're going to be judged based off of how you run your kingdom. And again, your first kingdom is yourself. So if you don't take care of yourself, physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, why would somebody want to join your kingdom? Why would somebody want to trust you with their kingdom? You have to have rule over yourself. You have to be beneficial to yourself first before you can be beneficial to anyone else. Sometimes people want to look the part without actually doing it. So yeah, you might get in shape. You might buy nice clothes, jewelry, whatever. And you may look like you're wealthy or you look like you're well put together. But when you're really tested and you're really put in a situation where you have to show up, all of that stuff that you put on top is going to go away. So you need to make sure that you're okay on the inside. And again, that's what I'm saying there. I think there are a lot of guys who desire this position of being an alpha or being a great man or being a king, but aren't really willing to do the work that's necessary to be in that actual leader position, to actually get the benefits or even earn the benefits. Very often, our natural inclination is to lean towards ease and pleasure. But to be a beneficial man, it requires us to do things that may be difficult and uncomfortable, whether it's remembering to take out the trash out every week, making sure you're watching your words when you speak to others, or speaking up for others or yourself when necessary. It's not always easy, but it is worth it. There's fulfillment in serving well. So, that's it. That's really what I wanted to kind of rant about. It's just this idea of like, I see it, I'm sure you do too. It's everywhere online. This idea of whether it's a high value man or alpha man or whatever. Again, that's why I push this idea of being a beneficial man. But no, it's important that we really work on and focus on becoming beneficial, again, for ourselves first and then for those around us. Thanks for watching the episode. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what's something that you kind of struggle with in the sense of like being beneficial to yourself. Like, what's that thing that that if I really want to be good to myself, where do I need to show up consistently at? Whether that's in your diet, whether that's making sure you get to work on time, whether that's making sure you have time for an emotional release valve. Let me know what's an area that I need to be more consistent at. I need to be more consistent at so that I can be beneficial for myself. Let me know in the comments. Black man, you're called for more than mediocre living. You're here for a purpose, to live for glory and for the good of others. Let's do the work and keep choosing to become beneficial for our community. I believe in you. Until next time, go make something for yourself, of yourself, and for glory and for good. Protect your mental, and find time for an emotional release valve. Peace.